Welcome to The Breakdown. We are here at Silverstone.
They will do whatever it takes to go around the track faster.
MotoGP provides the most exhilarating and gravity-defying action on the planet.
Let me tell you one thing. If you give Marc Márquez a factory Ducati, he will absolutely destroy everyone.
There is no racing machine faster in a straight line than a MotoGP bike. However, uniquely in motorcycle racing, it is the rider that captures the imagination.
This is a show. It will be a long time, I think, before anybody beats the showman of Valentino Rossi.
And in this special, we are going to look at some of the riders who have changed the game in MotoGP.
I've been told to emulate Marc Márquez. How do you even do it?
And try to decide once and for all just who is the greatest of all time.
There is just some human beings that compute information to be able to do something a bit more brilliant than somebody else.
This all ahead of the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone on the weekend of the 24th and 25th of May. And you can watch it all live on TNT Sports and Discovery Plus. Hello, we're an esteemed company here at Silverstone. I've got double World Superbike champion James Toseland alongside former World Superbike champion, of course MotoGP pundit now Neil Hodgson, and World Supersport champion, MotoGP rider, current MotoGP rider for Yamaha, Cal Crutchlow. Now, when I said to the boys, wear what you'd normally wear on a Friday night out, I didn't quite expect this, James, did you?
Hang on a minute.
All this.
I think we got it wrong. No, we got it right.
Well, if you say so. Anyway, when we are down the pub on a Friday night, one of the questions that we get asked more than anything from the average Joe in the street is how do MotoGP riders lean so far off the sides of their bikes and not fall off?
Well, what's quite interesting is it all started back in the 70s, really, if you think about it. Kenny Roberts, let's have a look at some of the footage from back then. This is...
Are you in this race, Neil?
I was in the lead. but straight away, obviously it looks incredibly old, but their body position's pretty neutral. But this was like the early days of getting your knee down. They didn't even have proper knee sliders, did they?
Duct tape.
Yeah, duct tape them on. But yeah, a great shot of these guys sat a lot more in the centre of the bike, but they're using that knee, sticking that knee out as the gauge to the floor.
Once people realised that's what you could do, get your knee down, that created feel as well for the tyres and understanding where the limit was. Then it moved on. Then we got into the 90s and your Swants, your Doohan. The riding style changed a lot, and you won't get a better example than watching Kevin Schwantz here. I mean, just to put it into perspective, looking at Kevin Schwantz, a modern day MotoGP rider's head now is here, right down there. I mean, and you think of someone like Wayne Rainey. I mean, Wayne Rainey had a modern style at the time, but look how dated it looks now, where his head position is, because he, like I say, you are sat on top of the bike waiting for it to snap.
Kevin had a very different style to the guys. Yes, he's got his knee on the floor, but that's more going towards the modern day riders now, you know, so you can already see that evolving over time with the tyres, with the bikes, with the riders.
Yeah, you got Kenny Roberts, with kind of one before Kevin. That's a perfect example of just searching for the tarmac with his knee, but leaving the rest of it in the middle in anticipation of those tyres going. And then you got Kevin kind of like, you know, all of a sudden hutching his backside off as well. So a little bit more weight on that side to stop the forces coming back. And then Wayne Rainey there, like that's the kind of like the move on forward from that. Then he's using his head. So it's not just your lower body he's using his body weight for. He's also used his upper body as well.
Think back, that generation in the 90s, it was always high sides. It was broken collarbones, lots of injuries.
No traction control.
No traction control.
And their traction control was their right wrist, you know, and where they're sitting on the bike, you know, and you can see them counteracting. As we see there, they are sat on the bike, picking it up. They're picking the bike up a lot more than what the generation now are having to pick the bike up, because they didn't have these rider aids either.
So we had this era, which a lot of people say the golden era. And then came the domination of this man, Mick Doohan. Here he is. Wow, straight away. And look at that, I'm going to rewind that.
That is that power coming in.
Exactly. Watch this. Yeah.
He's at more angle earlier on in the corner, and then suddenly that power comes in, he leaves a black line. You know, but he's sitting on top of it, waiting for it, ready for that to happen.
Interestingly though, with Mick Doohan, because let's not forget, most tracks are clockwise. So we know with the Michelins and Bridgestones, when we used to ride, Cal, well, you're still riding a little bit, but you know, the tyres lost their temperature massively, didn't they, when you weren't riding on those corners. So look at Mick Doohan's left-hand style compared to his right-hand style, because temperature's going out of the lefts on clockwise tracks. So did Mick Doohan figure out the best way, the safest way on trying to just see what the grip was in the middle of the bike, but he knew the right-hand side was going to be better because there's just more of them?
I think part of it was a little bit to do with his leg injury, why he had a weird style on one side. But when you look how extreme it is, his body positions, I mean, he's so twisted in. Again, back to showing where, like, imagine now, the modern MotoGP rider's shoulder's nearly on the ground and the head is here. Yeah. It's changed so much, but that's...
What you have to also remember is the head, how heavy the head is. You drop that head to there, it brings the G-force more down, you know, it brings your body weight down, it brings centre of gravity down, and it helps the bike to turn. That's why every year it seems that they're getting lower and lower to the floor, and that head is also getting lower and lower to the floor to help the bike to turn.
For me, growing up then, so I watched the way he ride a bike. Obviously, I watched Mick Doohan, and I honed my style off them.
I know you're not here just to look pretty in your leathers. You're going to show us a little bit of it?
I'll have a ride round. Any excuse. No, I'll have a ride round and try and explain why I ride like I ride, and there's certain, say, contact points on the bike that create feel and understanding, so I know where the limit is for me. Yeah, wish me luck.
Yeah. We might see you later.
Where's the medical centre, by the way?
My riding style's really old school, I know that. People even joke about it nowadays, but like I say, it's how I understood where the bike was. It's like when I go around a corner, the way I position my body on the bike creates feel. And a lot of that comes from the tank. Take this corner now, at the end of the straight, snow. So I lean the bike in, but I keep my body dead central. I can feel my body against the tank, my bum on the seat. All that basically allows me to feel the tyres.
What he's trying to do is, I think he's doing that, he's got his torso off, but he's leaving his head in the middle of the bike. So just like literally just sticking your knee out like that, well, it's like 90 degrees to the bike, and then as you lean over, you're just waiting for that tarmac to touch your knee slightly, aren't you?
Like down into Vale now, I'm just going to tip it into the left, and then a little short shift into the right, and look, my body stays central. So I have no movement from my body. Any movement below me is the tyres, and that's how I feel the limit.
Neil's actual normal riding style is quite light.
Not far off that.
Kevin Schwantz, yeah, but Kevin Schwantz kind of thing. Yeah. That's what he's trying to replicate now anyway, of sitting in the bike and letting that bike move around on the exit.
Well, boys, I don't know what the lap record is round there.
But it ain't
nowhere near it. It still stands. That was cold. That was cold.
I'm not surprised.
It looked cold here.
Yeah, not too many left-hand corners as well, so the left-hand side of the tyre felt a bit sketchy.
He's still got the same excuses.
What did you?
You look great. I like your style.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, if we talk about generational talents or people who have changed their styles over the years, straddling 2 strokes to 4 strokes was Valentino Rossi, of course. He took up the mantle from Mick Doohan. Then MotoGP began as 4 strokes from 2002 onwards. And he changed his style at the beginning and towards the end of his career as well. The most familiar thing, I suppose, for him was the doctor's dangle, which became, you know, something that was named after him.
Yeah, which we can see here. This taking his inside leg off. Valentino started to do it, then a few more people started to do it, then everyone does it now, if you think. And genuinely, I know I'm going to sound old, I still don't get it today. When I'm out on track, if I'm pushing on my own, trying to go fast, I still don't really understand what the benefits are. Obviously, Cal, you've been dangling your leg for 10 years now, nearly. Talk me through...
I've got a theory on
why it's better.
No, I don't think it is better. right? I have a complete theory on it. I genuinely believe it's like a panic thing. You see, when you were a kid on a bicycle and you weren't going to stop, what's the first thing you do? You put your foot on the floor and do like that. And now I think that current motorcycle riders are so on the limit. The first thing they do is put their foot put the foot out. They brake, they put the foot out, thinking this couldn't end well. You don't have time to think. I'm going to move my right leg
it's automatic.
5 inches forward because it's going to do this. It doesn't work like that.
Think about this then. Valentino Rossi must be laughing now, watching the racing, watching every rider around the world in every championship take the legs off in the braking zones, and he'll think, I started that and there's no real advantage.
I've got a different theory because I never used to do it. I was old school, but I was talking to Top Rack about it. And one of the taller lads, and Valentino is one of the taller lads as well, because so longer legs, it's a little bit more uncomfortable to have a longer leg on the foot peg. And he said it was a lot more comfortable on braking on the way in if I just took that off for a little bit as well. It's always on the inside leg before the corner that you're coming to as well. So that wind hits that leg, and the wind hitting that leg then pulled the bike in to the corner. And also he said it takes a lot of pressure off my arms when I brake. He says as soon as I put my leg out like that and the wind force, it pushed my torso back. So it took some weight off my arms as I was braking. But he says the biggest thing with Top Rack is because that rear wheel is never on the floor on the brakes. He says, I know that rear tyre is going to come down sometimes not in line, and it's going to hop and like high side back in and snap back into place. If he's got that leg there, it's like a cat's tail. As soon as it comes down and snaps, he's got that as there just to support the bike and react with it
a little bit
to balance it. Because when you've got the feet on the foot pegs, when that rear comes off, it just then snaps the bike.
There's more momentum with it.
So you've got that leverage.
Yeah, I think one thing we can agree on, Valentino definitely changed the way people ride motorcycles.
Obviously, we talk about Rossi moving things on, but a lot of riders talk about Casey Stoner. You're both racing against Casey Stoner. What did you come up against? What was it that Casey
Can we just
brought
admire
to
him
the
as
party?
well,
When you watch, have we got him in Stoner corner?
Yeah,
obviously.
Well, talking about braking, Neil, like this man here, when I used to watch him, he used to brake with just his middle finger. I could never do that. I don't know if you ever tried it, guys, but
no, never.
I could never get that finger.
There were lots of things that Stoner did that I never tried. I mean, he was just incredible, wasn't he? A pure animal on a motorcycle. Yeah. And when he won his first World Championship on the Ducati in 2007, Ducati had no success. They'd been really struggling, and he got on a bike and made the difference. It's rare that you see a rider completely make a difference. He destroyed his teammates, a bit like Marquez has done moving forward. But obviously we're talking about riding styles. Stoner just looked so confident with the rear sliding, but he had almost like a Schwantz, where that Schwantz would have the bike loose, but with a new school riding style. He sort of like combined that aggressive style of turning the bike with a throttle, but with a new school riding style.
And in some ways, I suppose, the Ducati, what was it then? It was an engine. It was an engine strapped into a bike, and no one was able to tame it.
It didn't turn, it didn't do anything you wanted it to do.
Yet he was able to do that, wasn't he, around that time?
With his riding style.
So Cal, you were there at the time with Valentino, just at the end of Casey as well. You're going to show us something about how they moved the game on?
They won a lot of world titles, so probably not, but I'll try and emulate a little bit towards their style, you know, from what Neil was doing out there, of more of his own style, which is more like Kenny, Schwantz. My style is more like Valentino and Casey. Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Hang on, the left-handers.
Yeah. No. Throw that in the bin. You might as well throw that in the bin, mate.
My friend.
Scrub them in for him.
On the brakes, back down to second gear, and these guys, they're coming in and they're dropping the head over as far as you can with the knee out. Now, this is where they start to use the leg coming out in the braking zone. That, as we were discussing downstairs, was a thing that Valentino Rossi started. I don't believe that they're doing it for any other reason than panic. I've had a big crash into there, actually.
There we go.
Kind of
see
rider.
that Cal there just doing the leg dangle all the way into the Vale chicane.
Is it different lefts to rights? Because I've seen some actually only do it in certain...
Yeah, normally you'd see riders do it more into lefts. Into rights, that's where the rear brake is. So a lot of people don't like to disturb, don't like to take the foot off. Or like Cal, for example, Cal will take his foot off, but then as he gets close to the corner, he then puts it back on and then he applies the rear brake. And Cal uses a lot of rear brake.
So that was a little bit of a technique as well when you're going in with the left foot, because you do the gear change. Obviously, you go from what, fourth to first there, probably on the R1 here at Silverstone, and then when you finish changing the gear, your foot is on the foot peg, nearly on your heel, isn't it, to change the gear? But then obviously when you go into the corner, you need to get your toe on there to get your foot out of the way.
Yeah.
So what Cal's done there is changed his gear, and then just to make it easy, he's just took his foot off to then get it back on, rather than shuffle it back off.
Casey was a rider that was always quite neutral in the middle of the bike, but he leant the bike over so much that he was so close to the floor compared to the other riders. And I don't think he necessarily had to change his style.
It's more leaning with the head, isn't it, than the hip? You know, I think that's the biggest difference. Look where you're going, put your helmet in the direction that you want to go to, rather than just trying to do it with your lower part of your body.
Well, it's so funny then, through that last corner then, where you watch Cal go through, he's much more central. His knee's not even, he's not like fully decked out, because he's building up to it. I get my knee down much earlier, but I'm like more upright, because it's like my lower body's much further off the bike.
And there's got to be a confidence thing in there as well, something that you've grown up doing, and Cal will have grown up perhaps seeing people getting off the bike that little bit more. And so then you've got the confidence to do that.
They were both, Casey and Valentino, both like halfway to the latest style, to the new style. Of the new style being that they're sticking the elbows on the floor, their bums right off the seats and as close to the ground as possible. Where Valentino and Casey at the time, and I think a lot to do with the tyres, were halfway there. And what I mean about halfway there is halfway to the style of riders like Marc Márquez, Pecco Bagnaia, Jorge Martin, that are really leaning off the bikes now.
Have you got arm pump?
Oh. That's cold, isn't it? Freezing. Yeah. And I think it's been 15 years since I've rode anything but a MotoGP bike, so it was a bit of fun. Anyway, it took me about 4 laps. I did 5 laps. It took me 4 laps to get my knee on the floor. So emulating these riding styles, it looked perfect, to be honest.
Did you feel a bit 1970s?
Of Mark Hailwood, not of Valentino Rossi and Casey Stoner. But
hey, we saw you getting your leg off though into Vale, but it looked like you were doing it for a short period of time. Not like a lot, but is that just because you weren't pushing hard?
It seems that most riders, they initially brake, you have a few meters, then that load happens of the front of the bike, and then that's when you do it, because you.
Right.
And then you stick your leg out for this shorter period of time, and obviously put it back on just before you enter the corner. Difficult conditions out there, Neil.
Yeah.
I don't envy you being how old you are anyway to be able to ride out there.
Well, we'll send you back out in a bit, because after the break we are going to go in depth on the man who changed MotoGP forever. He won the World Championship, the youngest ever at just age 20, and really has redrawn the rules of MotoGP. Is Marc Márquez the ultimate game changer? Welcome back to Silverstone, where we are discussing the riders who have changed MotoGP history on and off the track, I suppose, because the next rider we're going to talk about, 2013, steps into the MotoGP World Championship, wins at his first attempt. He's had his leathers modified because he's starting to get his elbow down, something he's done in his younger days. I'm talking, of course, about Marc Márquez. There is someone who changed the rules of the game.
What I like about this is, if you watch him, we'll move it through, it's super slow. There's no movement from his body. He stays super still on the bike so he can feel the tyres. As we can see, elbow just kissing the curb. And that's, I mean, that's
Perfection,
only
innit?
yeah, perfection.
When you see him with his elbow down there, we talked about the knee and the feel, that you were talking about through your knee. Is that coming from the elbow?
Well, if you just pause that there, right, that is the closest to that front tyre that is getting information through from the vibrations of the front tyre to that arm, compared to his knee. That's obviously further back from you. So as soon as Marc Márquez realised that elbow dragging down got information about what the front tyre was doing, and then you could catch those fronts. And there was only Marc that could catch those fronts because he was getting the information quicker than others. When other people had a standard style and lost a front, well, that elbow didn't touch the floor until you fell off. So there was no way of catching it. Too late. Yeah. And look, if that front tyre goes now, he's
ready to catch it.
He'll catch it.
I don't remember people saving front end crashes with just their knee. Really,
No.
We all tried, and you dug it in a few times. But
and we did luckily, but it was a lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
1 in 10.
Where
wasn't it?
Where Marc Márquez and a lot of these guys now, they use that for the gauge. This is the new style. They lean off the bike so much that their elbows are touching the floor. But when that front end does go, they've got another part to be able to save. And
makes sense,
and
doesn't it now?
Marc Márquez made that up.
Also, I think Marc's so brave that once he realised he could push past the limit and save it on his elbow, he was happy to do that. The consequences are that you get hurt when it goes wrong, but this man doesn't care, does he? We know he would.
No.
If it made him faster, he was prepared to take the risk.
Well, that's how he learned, and how he said was by finding the limit, and the way he found the limit was by crashing, by going over the limit.
The good news. The good news is we've let you go out and you've demonstrated how Valentino did it. You've showed us the doctor's dangle, more of a neutral riding style. The good news now, in these perfect conditions, because I can see the sun's come out, Cal, you're going to go out and demonstrate Marc Márquez's riding style for us.
I'll try.
It looks on there.
I've been told to emulate Marc Márquez. How do you even do it? Where do you even start? Marc and the other guys, Pecco Bagnaia, Jorge Martin, they're leaning their bike over at the same amount of angle as most of the other riders. It's just they're moving their bodies more close to the floor, and the biggest thing for me is the head position, is where they're dropping that head. They are getting down and they are leaning off the bike as much as humanly possible, and that's what makes the bike turn. Even then, just doing that, which is not even anywhere near my natural style of dropping that head down, dropping the elbow down, and the knee gets closer to the bike turns more than what it would without doing it.
I tell you what, you can see the difference. I can see the difference there, Cal.
Go on, what can you see there?
What you can see is the angle of his back. So the angle of his back is pointed towards his inside hand, where Cal normally is a little bit more central. So he's trying to do it, but it took him a couple of goals. You call it sort of 50 pence pea stick, because what happens when you turn your body and the bike turns a little bit sharper, so to pick the bike up just correct. But like he said, it's hard to adapt.
So they come in, they brake, they put their legs out, they're into the corner, and then they are dropping that head. But even that, the uncomfortableness of the wrist is so strange. And I do believe that's why you see them on left-hand corners, as we discussed before, being able to lean off more than what they do on right-hand corners, and it's because of that wrist position.
Getting that elbow right out, isn't he? Getting it right down.
It's so unnatural. It's so unnatural for me, but to them, it's the modern day of riding motorcycles. Like, I'm not telling you to go and do it on the road, that's for sure. But they come in, they release the brake, and down, they're there. It feels like my elbow is 2 inches from the floor, but the reality is, it's nowhere near it. It's there. And that's why they're able to turn these bikes so well now. You imagine dropping the head down to the side of the bike. I don't know how heavy the head is. It's one of the heaviest parts of the body, that is sure. But you drop that weight. You drop that weight closer to the floor, and the bike is going to turn more natural. You stick the elbow out close to the floor, it's going to turn even more as well. I get why they do it. I just can't do it.
I'm going to clap him in.
Yeah, come on.
I'm clapping him in.
Go on, Mark.
That's it. I'm scoring you a full. Get ready for this, Cal. 3 out of 10.
Yeah, well, I made it halfway to the floor with the elbow. It's not easy to do that, honestly.
We can tell.
Yeah.
Did you touch it down?
No.
Oh, no, it looked like you're about that far off. No, but it's hard, isn't
It's
it?
so hard. You know, I was trying to explain when you're out there. It's not normal. What I did notice, and what I have noticed when I've done it on the MotoGP part, trying to emulate this style and trying to change the style, when you move your head, you can't believe how much the bike falls into the corner.
We could see
that.
that.
It really.
Yeah.
I actually came out of a couple of the corners really tight.
Yeah.
You know, so I can see why they do it. Difficult to do. Difficult to see how they do it, lap upon lap, corner after corner. It's not just Marc Márquez. It's this whole new style, new generation of riders. They're doing it in Moto3 and
Obviously, Mark was the first, though. So was he just really lucky that he found this out himself, or is there something just in some of these guys that finds that?
I think he'd obviously watched Stoner and well, like we said,
He's like a craftsman, isn't he, though?
Yeah.
As in, he is a master of his game, and he's always learning. He's never too... I think he said about Valentino Rossi, he's willing to change his style, and he's a similar kind of rider where his brain is
super
always trying to work things out, whether it's trying to get around the rules, as we've seen at times, or whether it's trying to get around his own limitations on the bike.
Well, you talk about limitations. I think we're going to look at some now, and for me, I'm excited to show you these. I know you've seen them before, but I've picked some of Marquez's absolute incredible saves. This is at Aragon, the last corner. It's a fourth gear on a MotoGP bike, and he's crashed. He's crashed. He's definitely crashed. Well, look, he's crashed. Oh no!
But if you just rewind that, Neil, if you can,
It's just
what we were talking about before. Of this new style that he's developed for himself, and the confidence that he's got that he can save something like that. Yeah, it's about now, isn't it, that it's going. You can see the angle of the front, it's starting to tuck. Look how close his elbow is to the floor, that when it goes, it's gone. And the
now
elbow...
it's
doing it
yeah,
half
now he
spin.
puts the elbow
Now
down.
look at that.
Look,
Look at
yeah.
that. But it's
Opposite-
like fully closed the front. That is a crash.
But-
to everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
Except Mark.
Because if his elbow was in more of a traditional style, by the time that front's gone, by the time you then get the elbow down, it's gone.
You're down, aren't you? Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah, you've
And
got
that's
you've got
what
that far.
Yeah.
At least for your elbow to hit the floor.
And what's that, a
He's
metre?
already there. Yeah, but he's already there.
Yeah.
You know.
Right, just when you thought you'd seen a really good save, you hadn't, because you hadn't seen this one. Do you remember this one? This was Sepang, turn 1, and I've got to say, of all his saves, this is the best shot of it. Watch this. It's,
Went so early, didn't it?
right, look. He's bailing out. No, he's not. He's digging his knee. Look at that. His knee slider's hooked round. Now it's even. They had to. Alpine Stars had to redesign his leathers because of him doing stuff like this. Surely he's crashed, but he's not giving in. He keeps pushing, and flicks the bike back up. This is a really fast corner. Turn 1 in Valencia. This is the last round of the championship. He's going for the title.
That's fast as well, isn't it, Neil?
Look at it.
Third gear?
Yeah, third gear in a MotoGP bike.
And how much more difficult is it to save at high speed as well?
Oh, I mean, it's
Yeah,
so
no
difficult.
chance.
And that corner, think of turn 1 at Valencia. How many people have crashed there? Talking about riding styles, we've seen him do the saves. The next bit's not as nice. It's the crashes. I mean, there's one thing we know about Marc. He's not afraid to push to the limit and go over it. Why does he do that? Well, so that he can just not pull it back at 1 notch and ride at that point and no one can touch him. And like I say, talk about crashes. I mean, he's had some, as we know, throughout his career, he's had some horrendous crashes. Hold your breath. hold tight, because here's the Marc Márquez show. I mean,
But not
Face
front though,
plant.
not front, always rear.
always rear. I mean, this is the one in 2020 when he broke his arm.
That's the career ender.
That's the career ender, which he's somehow managed to, after 3 operations, come back from. This is the biggest. That's about 120 miles an hour.
That's shocking. I mean, look at the state of the bike.
And that was the crash that he had the issue where he the
Double vision
yeah.
again, which he's had previously, hasn't he? The double vision problem. It's come back. He's able to pick himself up again and again. Talk about the mental fortitude that must take to do that kind of thing.
Did you see that for recovery?
Yeah,
by the
he
way?
just started running.
Yeah.
You know, Gav, I don't know how many crashes you said it was in.
Since 2016, in race weekends alone, over 130 crashes. That's only since 2016.
So
That's
then,
not.
They're still happening. He's still crashing in those.
yeah, in the real, but we also discussed that's not including testing. You know, testing's where you test the limit. When we go to the test at Sepang or after the race weekend, we have a few tests over the year. There's going to be more. You know, in that 130 or whatever you said it was. I think that crashing's part of the game, and I look at Marc Márquez and think he knows how to crash as well. You know, it's why he's only been injured twice in that longer period of time. You know, he's had a couple of operations, maybe his hand or these things, but really training he's had more surgeries than riding. But he is, as we discussed with regards to the saves, he's so cat-like. You know, we call him the cat. When I was riding a Honda, we called him the cat. And I think that it's the same thing when he crashes. He's relaxed. He knows it's going to happen. It's part of the job.
Part of it, he knows
you know,
it.
it's part of the job, and it doesn't faze him. You know, who else in the world would have came back from that arm injury? Because I don't know anybody, especially to the level he's at.
On the 4th
He's
operation,
back
they had
in
to
the
rotate the arm 30 or 34
Well,
degrees.
they sawed his arm off effectively again.
To rotate the arm 34 degrees to get it in the right position. I mean, you can recover to take your wheelie bin up, all right, a bit better, but to win MotoGP races again, it's like incredible, isn't it?
A question for you, I'm really intrigued. You've had some big high sides, like proper massive crashes with an airbag suit, and you've had it without an airbag suit. What's the difference percentage-wise? Is it like pain for what you experience? What's the difference? Because I've never had a big crash with an airbag, so I don't know what that feels
we're talking about the shoulders. You are talking about the shoulders, but you see this suit that I've got on now. I've got an airbag down here. You know, your hips, around the pelvis area, where it's, you know, the game has changed.
But on a scale of 1 to 10 of pain, when you have a horrible crash, is it like it's 50% less if you're fully airbagged up?
And more, I would say more.
Even more?
I would say honestly even more.
So do you think that's allowing riders to push harder? Because actually the penalty's not, because there's nothing worse.
The riders, you know, as riders, you don't think about that. You don't say, okay, I've got an airbag suit on.
I'm going to risk more.
Let's risk more.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
But there must be something in the back of your mind that I'll run you right on the limit, that this is going to hurt to a certain point, like you're making a point there. So if it's only going to hurt 20% of when we used to fall off in the 90s and have holes in his elbows because the protection used to wrap around, it must be making a difference on the commitment that you have on a motorcycle.
But not for us, because I know how you rode, I know how I rode, I know how you ride still. I never rode around thinking I was going to get hurt. Ever. I never thought
But
that.
it was something that you wouldn't have thought about, but you do. Is there something...
Subconsciously.
Subconsciously, something in there.
I couldn't have gone any faster than I was never thinking I'm going to risk less to here because it might hurt. You never thought that. I know
Well,
you
I
didn't.
can tell you one thing.
And I know
Well, I can tell you one thing. He definitely doesn't.
Yeah, well,
You know,
yeah.
and that's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, I think that you can't race motorcycles like that, as you know. As soon as you are, especially in MotoGP, which is what we're talking about, if you are 1% thinking of that, you're at the back.
I think we need to close this circle. We started, didn't we, with Kenny Roberts? Yeah. Getting your knee down for the first time. People followed, and we've seen the progression. And this is where we've got to. This is the reality of the modern MotoGP rider. That's Jorge Martin, your current world champion, with his shoulder on the ground. That's not a banked curb, that's flat on the inside. That's him using his body, getting his centre of gravity as far forward and as low as he possibly can. I feel like we need to watch that again. It was that good.
The one thing is that I try to explain to people, he's not trying to do that. He's not saying, okay, I'm now going to put my shoulder on the floor. That's
He's
just,
having to do it.
He's having to do it, and it's natural for him.
Yeah,
you know?
because he's small, he's got little legs, so he hasn't got much weight from his hips down, has he?
Because
So
that angle of that bike, honestly speaking, is no different to Casey Stoner at that same corner we had video earlier, which was over 10 years ago, way over 10 years ago. Honestly, the angle is the same. It's the rider that is now...
How different is it to Doohan or Schwantz in terms of the
actually,
angle?
Slightly less. There's slightly more angle.
Tyres are going to be, different width, I would say. So you can lean the bike more than what Doohan could at the time, I would say. But, relatively speaking, we're talking a few degrees. Not suddenly he's got 50% more lean angle, because that's not. It's him.
Is this going to be the way forward, or is Marc Márquez having to do this, or can he ride differently still?
I don't think they need to just keep going and going and going. I really don't.
Head down.
I think that, of course, if the bike allows you to do it, if they will do whatever it takes to go around the track faster. It's as simple as that. And if that means them in 2 years not dragging their elbows on the floor, they will do it.
We're going to discuss after the break who is the greatest of all time. Can we compare through the eras, or are we going to all agree that Marc Márquez is doing something that nobody else has ever done before? We'll find out. Right, should we have a seat? Nice of you to get changed anyway, boys. Appreciate it.
that's better.
So come on then. Yeah, it's more comfortable down here.
So come on then.
Come on then. No, what is it? Let's get to the essence. What makes Marc so good?
You're looking at me straight away.
Straight away coming to you.
I've had the privilege of riding with him 6 years in Honda. So I got to see the data, I got to see what he does, week in, week out. If I could do it, I would have, but it's impossible. The way he rode the bike, these cat-like instincts that he's got, the mentality, the team he had around with him, everything just worked. To do what he has done over such a long period of time is amazing. As you know, as riders, you go into a race weekend and you always believe you can win, because if not, there's no point to be there.
Of course.
But the reality was, always in the back of your mind, you're racing against Marc Márquez.
Hang on. Don't doubt me.
Yeah, I had one. I told you I had one. One or two. And remember, he crashed in that race. So,
one more than most people, Carl.
But when you said you saw the data, what was on the data? What was it?
his control of the front brake was my biggest thing. When he brakes, the front wheel is locking a lot, but you play with the brake lever a lot into the corner. Now, Marc figured out that the more you lean the bike into the corner, the more deceleration you get with the bike, which is completely true. But if you are locking the front wheel, the first thing you do is pick the bike up. That's a natural instinct, where Marc was the opposite. He leant more. So to be able to figure that out, nobody else could do it.
Now, what is he doing that's taken things to another level?
Well, he's able to slide the front, essentially. We saw Mick Doohan slide the rear. We saw Schwantz slide the rear. When you think of Kenny Roberts, you think about him sliding the rear. No one's been able to control a front slide and a rear slide. But it's not just that. He's got it all. He is the perfect package. Think of his racecraft. In all conditions, he loves a flag to flag. When it's raining, you have to swap bikes. There's no one adapts to track conditions quicker. We go to a track on a Friday and it's really dirty and everyone's struggling because there's no grip. Marc's 1 second faster than everyone. He had years on the Honda where it wasn't the best bike, but he made the difference. He has been beaten in championships when he wasn't on the best bike. Cal, I'll never forget you saying this when you rode with him, when you saw his data. You said to me, Neil, let me tell you one thing. If you give Marc Márquez a Ducati, a factory Ducati, he will absolutely destroy everyone. And look where we're at right now. No one's got even close to being the same speed as him.
That injury, I still don't believe to this day he is riding at 100%. I believe that if you had the Marc Márquez of 2015 to 2019, the way he was riding on a package that was not as good as what he was racing against, in my opinion, and he was riding like that now, they wouldn't even see half a lap of him.
As someone who probably had the career cut short through injury. Yourself, JT, what about what Marc's done? We've talked about it being a career-ending injury. To go through what he's gone through, I know you've been through procedure after procedure after procedure to try and sort out your injuries at the time, to then have the mental fortitude to come back and give up a year's salary with Honda, which we're all guessing is towards the 20 million mark, to give all that up, to jump to a satellite bike, to then find your way back to a factory Ducati. What does that take?
Insatiable appetite for succeeding and going fast on a motorcycle like we've never seen before. And I've had 10 operations on my wrist trying to get it to a happy place, just even a functional place. And when I saw the document on Marc Márquez with the operations that he had, the 4 operations, the 4th operation going to America, having his arm rotated over 30 degrees to even be able to ride a motorcycle properly again. And it's not just the bones healing. When you really injure yourself, as I know Neil had a similar problem with his shoulder, it's the muscle damage, and you can get the strength back from lifting things for 2 or 3 minutes, but the strength endurance is a whole different thing. To ride a MotoGP bike round for 35, 40 minutes at that level, after 4 operations on the same arm, it's remarkable.
It's a real simple way of putting it. He wants it, in my opinion, more than any motorcycle rider I've ever seen. I'm 51 years old. I've been riding bikes all my life. I've been involved in racing, like we all have. I've never seen anyone with the hunger of Marc.
There's just some people, isn't he? Your Ronnie O'Sullivans at snooker, your Federers at tennis. There is just some human beings that compute information into their eyes, into their brains, and their brains send messages to the rest of their body, to their extremities, to be able to do something a bit more brilliant than somebody else.
For such a long period of time to be able to stay at the top, and with the injury that he had, going away, coming back, and now being at the front again, that's why I believe he's the best rider.
I think just keep respect for champions past. I think the Agostinis computed that way. I think the Kenny Roberts computed that way, the Eddie Lawsons, the Swans, the Doohans, the Casey Stoners, Pedrosas. They are born
different.
Just to put someone on the table, Mike Halewood, he has 10 years off and goes to the Alaman TT and wins.
Yeah, you can't argue with
40.
that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
But everyone's got the stories, and that's
Things
why
like
I say
that.
everyone's...
They're up there with what Marc's gone through.
Yeah. Everyone's a great in, well, for the normal person, well, semi-normal person, watching on from the sidelines. Everyone who puts their leg over a motorcycle, especially, and races for our entertainment is special.
Yeah.
You have to say, and it's so impossible to compare through eras. There have been a lot of greats in our sport, but that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Because that's why people keep watching.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why people want Pedro Acosta to beat him. Because they
They're
you know,
a fan.
It's not just his fans. They want to see an underdog win, you know, and that's why I still tune in. That's why I want to watch racing now from the TV. You want the story of Marc Márquez, but you also want the underdog to do well, and that's why we keep coming back.
Or the new kids who have invented a new style, whether it be shoulder down, whether it be getting the head down, whether it be something else. But that's what you want to see, don't you?
But you know, look at Casey. I would say Casey. If Casey carried on going, would he be like Marc? I believe so, yes, as well.
But what a great example. Casey got burnt out at 27.
Yeah.
I'm not criticising.
No.
It's that hard to have that intensity, like Casey did throughout his career.
And then we
Marc
look at
still got
Valentino.
that intensity at 32.
Yeah, so if we are talking then about greatest of all times, and I do think it's hard. We've already spoken about technological limitations of your motorcycle. We've said how that affects whether it's your Halewoods, your Jeff Dukes, even back in the John Surtees who went onto 4 wheels, and then you go through Agostini, Barry Sheen and Kenny Roberts in their era, and through the 80s, the American-Australian domination through that period. You get to Valentino Rossi, don't you?
Yep. More than riding styles, more than victories, more than championship wins. This is a show at the end of the day. And it will be a long time, I think, before anybody beats the showman of Valentino Rossi, and what he brought to the sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
Off the track and off the bike, as well as his riding style and everything on the bike.
There'll be nobody as far as you could see that could ever do it.
Not in our lifetime, maybe, but I think television got more involved in broadcasting motorcycle racing, and just as television really upped their game, there was a Valentino Rossi in the late 90s, and he was just gold, wasn't he?
Gold.
Absolutely gold.
Let's not forget the race against each other. Like Marc came in as a rookie in 2013 with no experience, obviously, on a MotoGP bike, and beat Valentino Rossi. It's hard to separate them. If only, what a shame they didn't race against each other. Oh no, they actually did for 6 seasons. It's not like they just did 1 year and Rossi was done. Rossi was not done in 13, 14. He almost won the title in 15. We won't talk about that.
Probably best not.
But they raced against each other, and who won 7, 8 times out of 10? Marc Márquez did. Was he on a better bike? 13 he probably was. 14 potentially, but 15 the bike wasn't. Do you know what I mean? So that's why, for me, Marc steals it from Valentino. Is Marc Márquez the greatest of all time?
Oh, you've said it.
I'm saying he is.
Cal's almost said it.
But I'm so on the fence
So
because
got a couple of splinters
completely
in the
get what
backside.
James is saying
Yeah, that's fine.
about the entertainment of Valentino and, you know, the Agostini, the Kenny Roberts, you know, these guys. It's so difficult to compare.
You're not committing then? You're just going to sit on the fence?
If you take him out of it,
committing.
if you take him out of it,
is Marc Márquez the great? We're not in court now.
Stalling again. He's stalling again.
I'd say yeah.
So that's a yes. Get your hand up then,
James?
JT.
I'm just going to be different because I can't put my hand up for Valentino and Ago and Nieto and Mike Hellwood. I can't. But like he's equal to the greatest with what he's been through and what he's done in
And the
his
story's
career.
not over, is it? That's what we're saying
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Imagine
you
if he
know, I
wins
think that-
2 more World Championships.
Well, lads, I think we should end it there. Otherwise, we will be talking well into the night. People have to go home, you know, here at Silverstone. Cal, been great to have you. James and Neil, thanks for your company and thanks for yours too. A reminder that the British Grand Prix will be exclusively live on TNT Sports. MotoGP sprint race is on Saturday, the 24th of May. And on Sunday, we'll have all the Grand Prix action. Of course, it's always on TNT Sports 2 and on Discovery+. We hope to enjoy your company then. See ya.